Well, hello friends, and welcome to the very special video that I have been wanting to make for you all for a very long time, and I know you've been looking forward to it too. My husband is excited because he's gonna get to eat the Swedish meatballs later today. My cat is super excited. She's running around in the background like a pork chop. We're all very excited, so thank you for being here. Now, I will talk you through the ingredients and I'll show you how to make the meatballs, and I will give you my verdict at the end, how I go. But I also wanted to answer a few of your questions because the channel has grown a lot lately. Thank you so much for being here. My cat just tumbled down the stairs. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate each and every one of you. I'll talk a little bit later about why I started this channel and that sort of stuff, but I'm so grateful that you're here, and I'm really stoked that this channel has grown so much recently. So thank you for every single comment, like, subscribe. It really means the world to me because, you know, small growing channels, we're not making millions of dollars here, if anyone thought that. Anywho, I'm gonna get into these questions and answer them throughout this video. And I'm gonna start with one of the very most common questions that I get. So one question that I get probably most commonly is, where are you from? Where's your accent from? And my kit today will probably give it away. I was born and raised in Sweden. I'm 43 years old at the filming of this video in July of 2025. And I was born and raised in Sweden and lived there up until I was about 19, 20 years old. I have lived here in Australia for just over 15 years now, near Melbourne, Australia for most of that time, but I've traveled around Australia quite a lot in the years that I've lived here. And I actually started my very first year as a backpacker, going all over the place with a really good friend of mine who has since moved back to Europe. But yeah, I really love it here. I really like Australia. It's quite cold at the moment, which is why this dish and this recipe is a really good one to make in the winter time. But in between leaving Sweden at the age of 19, 20 and traveling a lot and studying overseas and coming back in stints and things like that, I also spent a year in the US near San Francisco, and I spent a couple of years in the UK near the Manchester region before I moved to Australia in 2010. So yeah, that is why my accent is a bit all over the place. It does change depending on who I chat to. If I chat to one of my best friends who's Canadian, it'll sound a bit more like that. If I hang out more with my husband, it will sound a bit more Australian. So I'm a bit of an accent chameleon. I've joked about it here before on the channel, but that is where I'm from, and that is why I feel privileged to share my version of my family's Swedish meatball recipe with you all today. And here is everything we're gonna need to make our Swedish meatballs. Now, this is my version of my family's recipe. You can look up other recipes and cook them up however you like, but I'm gonna show you my way, which my husband absolutely loves. He's probably just as excited for this video as many of you are. I'm gonna serve my meatballs with mashed potatoes. So I'm gonna peel and chop these up in just a second. You can have boiled potatoes, but potato is very traditional to serve your Swedish meatballs with. So that's what we're doing today. So I'm gonna do mash. I'm also gonna serve them up with a side of just green beans. So I'm gonna cook these up in my microwave just before we get ready to serve it. I find that something green like beans, peas, or something like that works really, really well. Now, the kicker, if you've been to IKEA, you know, this beautiful place, lingonberry jam. Sorry, there we go, it's gonna focus. Lingonberry jam is a part of the signature of Swedish meatballs. It is a sort of a tart thing that works really well with savory. If you've been to IKEA and tried it, you may or may not like it, but it's definitely a lot of sugar in this. The closest thing, if you can't get a hand of, if you don't have an IKEA or like a Scandinavian food shop near you where you live, which you may not have, you could try cranberry sauce. I know people who've tried cranberry and say that it's close enough, but not the same. But if you want to make traditional Swedish meatballs, you need lingonberry jam. Lingonberry grows on little shrubs, kind of like blueberries, and they're really common back in Sweden in the winter time. All right, so for the meatball part itself, this is obviously not plant-based, and I've never tried to make this with plant-based mince, but feel free to have a go if that's your jam. No pun intended, lingonberry jam, haha. So what I'm working with today here is I've got 500 grams of pork mince and I've got 500 grams of beef mince. This recipe, and I will be writing it out and linking it below this video how you can make it. Again, this is just my version of my family's recipe. So that's what we're using today. We're also going to cut up a brown onion very, very small and soften that in a fry pan before we kind of mix the meatballs together. You could also use onion powder or onion flakes if you were in a pinch. We're also going to be I'm using gluten-free breadcrumbs. This is no flavor, no extra seasoning. I wouldn't recommend any Italian flavors. It's not really going to work with what we're going for today. So any just plain old breadcrumb, or make your own even. So I've got half a cup of breadcrumbs here, and I'm going to add a little bit of either water or milk to this and let it kind of swell up just a tiny bit. I find that it really just helps with the texture of the meatballs. And then I've got one large egg that we're going to use as well, which is very kind of standard for your burgers or your meatballs, generally speaking. So that's sort of the meat compartment. We're going to sear the meatballs in a little bit of butter. So I've probably got about 50-ish grams of butter here. So we're going to cook the meatballs first in a fry pan just to sort of get them nice and colorful. And then we're going to finish them off in the oven to cook through. And for the sauce on the side really is the hero, I think, of what makes Swedish meatballs, in addition to your lingonberry jam. So we're going to do kind of, it's not a gravy, it's more of a creamy sauce. There are some people in Sweden who will serve it with sort of a brown, more gravy-like sauce, but I like a more cream-based sauce. So this is just thickened cream. I've got about half a cup here, which we're going to use for the sauce, along with some butter and some gluten-free flour. So we're basically just doing a roux, and you may need to thin it out with either a little bit of milk or water, depending on how thick you like it. Now, to get a little bit of color on the sauce, I normally use soy sauce. There's gluten-free soy sauce, but this is all I had in the house. So I'm pretty sure we've been using this instead of soy sauce for a little while in other recipes, and it's worked just fine. So that's going to be totally fine. That's obviously got a bit of salt to it, so I'm going to be very careful with my salt and pepper. But I'm going to keep my seasonings very, very simple. So this is all we're going to need to do our meatballs. So I'm going to get started first by cutting up my onion, peeling and cutting up my potatoes, and let's start answering some of your questions. All right, so that's everything we're gonna need to cook these meatballs up, and I'm gonna get moving on the prep now. Before I do, I quickly wanted to answer another question that's come up quite a few times, which is, do you cook any other Swedish meals? And Swedish meals, I guess, or Swedish cuisine in general, is quite potato heavy. I feel like we have a lot in common with the Irish. Maybe it's because it's you need cold, nutritious meals, especially when people used to work more in like farming and in factories and things like that, and out in the fields. But a lot of our dishes are potato heavy. There are a couple of dishes that I definitely make all the time. One of them is a Swedish sandwich cake. I will include some pictures here on the screen. You can make them either as a large, almost like a tray cake, or as individual portions, but it's basically like a bread-based savory cake. It is delicious. It's really nice when it's a bit warmer outside, so I tend to make it around Christmas time in Australia because that's when it's really hot here. But that is a dish that I quite often make. You can vary it up a lot. Let me know down in the comments if you would like me to make Swedish sandwich cake with you all, because I would be happy to do that. In addition to the beloved sandwich cake, I am a big fan of fish, but I'm not a huge fan of pickled herring. Pickled herring is something you'll see at IKEA, you'll see it at almost every Swedish traditional, Christmas, midsummer, anything like that. And honestly, it's not my favorite. I don't love pickled fish. I love salmon, I love smoked salmon and things like that, but I'm not a huge fan of pickled fish. So you won't find that on this channel, I'm very sorry. I will have a think if there are other Swedish dishes I do tend to make. There's like a potato bake that I often make, like a potato gratin, which is quite common in Sweden, but I wouldn't say it's a Swedish dish. So between the meatballs today and the sandwich cake, they're probably the most Swedish things that I cook often. Now you might be wondering why I'm wearing fake flowers in my hair, and I should probably explain that. Sweden has a tradition called Midsummer, and Midsummer is the third Friday in June every year, which is the shortest night and the longest day of the year. And that's when we pick flowers and celebrate fertility and eat weird pickled fish and do all those sort of things. Maybe some meatballs as well. So anyway, I bought this last time I was in Sweden because I thought it was kind of a funny thing to have. So these are not real flowers, but you know, I can honor the inner, the inner celebration of midsummer in midwinter. Alright, so my potatoes are cut up and in some salty water there, getting to a boil, and my onion is translucent and cooked. I added a little bit of black pepper, which is why it's got a little bit of color, and I cooked it in just a little tiny bit of butter. It's cooled ever so slightly, so now we're just going to mix in all the other ingredients, including some salt and pepper seasoning, and get rolling these meatballs. Next up is a question that I've had a few times here on the channel, which is what's your favorite cuisine? And today we're obviously cooking Swedish food. I think my absolute favorite, like if we go out to dinner or things like that, I tend to opt for either Thai cuisine, I really like Thai food, or I really like Mexican cuisine and flavors as well. So those would probably be my two favorites outside of the things that you see me cook here on the channel. So I find that the key to success with meatballs or any kind of patties like this is to have something that you can very easily form into a ball and it will stay. Sorry, I'm making a mess. How do you even cook without making a mess, I ask? Anyway, we are now I'm gonna rope my husband in because he's really good at rolling meatballs. But you don't want it to be too wet. So if you need to add a little bit more breadcrumbs, or you don't have to put water in your breadcrumbs like I did, but I'm very happy with this sort of texture. It actually holds the shape of a ball quite well. So now we're just gonna roll all this up into meatballs, and then I'm gonna cook them in the same pan that I cooked the onion, because why create extra dishes, right? I'm actually gonna make the sauce afterwards in the same pan, so we get all that beautiful flavor from the meatballs. But we're gonna roll these up now, and then we're gonna start cooking them. Okay, we have a big tray of meatballs. So I have just put a little bit of butter in my fry pan. I'm gonna start frying these up now in batches, probably 2 or 3 batches. You don't wanna overcrowd the pan. My potatoes are boiling and things are gonna start smelling very nice very soon. Next up is a question that comes up from time to time, which is how long have you been on YouTube? And the answer to that is this channel you're watching right now has been around for a year and a bit. There's lots of playlists and past videos for you, those of you who are new here, to go and check out. Got lots of recipes and tips and things like that. I also have another YouTube channel which is called Simple Essentials, and it's all about minimalism, organization, decluttering and things like that. So I will link that channel. It's been around for a little bit longer and I'm starting to post some more new content on there very soon. So it will be linked in the description under this video if you want to check that out. The other question is, have you always loved cooking? And I chuckle because if you would have told me 5 years ago that I would be cooking on YouTube, I would not have believed you. I see food very much as fuel for our body, and I also don't like waste. So I do enjoy cooking and using up what I have and getting creative with resources, but cooking specifically is not something I love, but I do love giving my body healthy fuel to do all the things in my life that are important to me. All right, so husband is mashing potatoes. Love him for helping me out. We often cook this whole meal together, by the way, but he doesn't want to be on camera, which I totally understand because I look ridiculous. Anyway, the last of the meatballs are in the oven, and again, the whole purpose is just to sear the meatballs in the pan so you get this beautiful flavor. Now, we're not going to lose this goodness of flavor here. So I've turned it right down to low. And we're gonna make a simple roux, which is basically melt some butter, whisk in some flour, in this case gluten-free flour. The green beans are shouting at us in the microwave, so they're done. And we're gonna make a roux, and then I'm gonna add a little bit of salt, probably mostly pepper, a tiny bit of salt, and some of this soy sauce substitute. And it's gonna make a really delicious sauce to pour over the meatballs, so let's do that. All right, so as we get started on the sauce here, again, make sure that your pan is not too hot. Mine was a little bit on the hot side, so it did get a bit lumpy, but we saved the sauce, so do not fret, it turned out super delicious. But I thought I'd answer your final couple of questions while we cook up this roux. And one is, what are your most used kitchen tools or items? I've actually done a whole video specifically on my favorites in the kitchen. I will link that video below this video so you can check it out. But essentially, the short answer is my coffee machine. I use it every single morning, saves me a lot of money. My pots and pans, one of the fry pans you see here on the video, we got a really nice set a couple of years ago. The knife block you see in the far left, I use my knives every single day. My turbo oven and my Instant Pot. Those would probably be the things I use the most. But again, check out that video if you want to see this in a little bit more detail, including some links to where you can get them. And finally, what are your least favorite chores in the kitchen that's either kitchen or cooking related? I don't love doing dishes. I like the accomplishment of having finished the dishes, but my husband kindly often does the dishes because we have a rule that whoever cooks doesn't have to do the cleanup. So quite often I will cook and he'll help, or we'll help each other out with the cleanup. So dishes is probably the least favorite thing. I'm also not a huge fan of like cleaning the kitchen. I always keep my kitchen very clean and tidy, but I don't love like scrubbing the sink and that kind of stuff. So I do keep it clean, I do keep it hygienic, but I do have to push myself sometimes to do those things. So they would probably be my least favorite things that I kind of have to do. So we're pretty starving. It's dinner time, so I'm gonna serve up. We've got the sauce. I had to add quite a bit extra milk to this one. So just be a bit careful, really low temperature, and pour in your cream and kind of whisk it up. It may lump, and that usually means that your pan is too hot or that you need a little bit more liquid to work with the sauce. But it turned out good. I would definitely recommend soy sauce instead of tamarind sauce. But that's okay. We've got my mash, we've got my beans, we've got my meatballs. Ah, it smells so good. All right, let's plate this up and have some dinner. I am pretty dang excited about this. I hope you are as well. Enjoy. If you try Swedish meatballs, do let me know. Thanks for hanging out with me today, and thank you for letting me answer your questions. If you have more questions that I haven't answered in this video, go ahead and put them down there in the description box, the comment section. I'm hungry. Let's go eat. Have a great evening, and I'll see you in the next video. Well, hello there friends, and welcome to the video that I've been talking about for a while, which is where we're gonna make Swedish meatballs. And my cat is playing and wants to join this video. Let me see if I can calm her down and, you know. All right, it seems my cat is just as excited about this video as I am and as you probably are, and my husband is equally excited because he gets to eat the beautiful food that we're cooking up. I have tried to film this intro for so long. I'm just gonna go distract my cat 1 second.